Alright, as with all things co-op related, regardless of the category, make sure that the autograb feature is set to be off. The default when you first start the game is on, so once you change it the first time, you should be set from then on. If you want to play solo, you don't have to go back and change autograb to on because it will automatically kick in unless there are two controllers active. What has come to be known as a zoop happens when you hold L2 and triangle. The player that zoops will be the one that flies to merge with the other player. So in this example, the yellow Yarny zoops to the red Yarny. Alright, a zoop cancel is a two-step process that occurs when the one Yarny zoops and the other Yarny then hits the zoop buttons before the first Yarny completes its aerial journey and can merge. So the yellow Yarny zoops to the red Yarny, but gets cancelled midway. Zoop cancels allow for gaining height very quickly. The zooper can control which direction they fall once cancelled. The canceller can also help direct where the zooper goes by jumping into or away from the other player right before canceling the zoop. It's sort of a roll of the thumb from the jump button to the merge button. No two walls or obstacles are the same, and so the height you need to gain with zoop cancels will vary. There are several variations on the zoop cancel that can make getting around the playing environment easier, depending on what you need to do. While a wall isn't necessary, it often makes timing of zoop cancels a bit easier to coordinate. A cling climb like this involves one Yarny jumping and clinging to the wall for a moment before being zoop cancelled higher. The Yarny on the ground needs to jump and slightly in towards the wall while cancelling the zooping Yarny to get that height. Sometimes, for short heights, only one cling zoop cancel is needed to get up, while other walls or other obstacles may require numerous cancels to get that height you need. And of course, once you get to the very top of whatever you're trying to get over, just zoop from the bottom to the top, and then both Yarnies will be up there ready to go. Unlike cling climbs, jump climbs involve the Yarny that zoops to wall jump before the zoop cancel to gain a bit of extra height. So one Yarny jumps to the wall, then performs a wall jump, and at the apex of that wall jump, gets zoop cancelled up higher. Repeat this process if the wall or obstacle is too tall. Again, the Yarny on the ground needs to jump and can move right or left to control where the zooping Yarny gets placed back on the wall or the obstacle. Sometimes what you're trying to get over is at a height where combining different climb techniques might be optimal, so experiment with what works and what feels good as to what kind of zoop cancels you need to do and where and when to implement them. So we've found very few spots where this next technique actually saves time, but you can sort of juggle a Yarny in air without the need of a wall or an obstacle. There are some cutscene triggers and puzzles that you can solve by utilizing this technique, though we personally find it much more difficult than the previous climbing techniques. The juggle requires relatively precise zoop and zoop cancel executions. The zooping Yarny starts off by jumping and zooping at the apex of that jump. Then the canceling Yarny on the ground needs to jump and cancel at the same time. The zooping Yarny then zoops again as the canceling Yarny gets back on the ground, and the process continues until you gain whatever amount of height you need to scale the obstacle. If anything, this technique is a good exercise in partner timing with zoop cancels, and it's pretty fun to mess around with. The Neo climbing technique doesn't involve any zoops or cancels. Simply walk up to a wall, hold up and slightly into the wall. Each Yarny holds L2, and then start mashing jump. The tension in the yarn keeps the Yarnies close and allows for them to climb the wall by using wall jumps and the yarn tether between them. This technique also works in solo gameplay, with the only change is that you need to alternate between jumping and merging as you go up the wall. Neo climbing provides a speedy alternative to zoop cancels, but do require a wall's gameplay surface to be flat all the way up. Sometimes if there are protrusions or the wall surface isn't quite completely vertical, it might make the Neo climb more difficult to perform, so keep that in mind. Going into slow-mo can potentially help for any wonky shaped wall faces or ones that are slightly less vertical, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. Alright, so zoop cancels allow for skipping big chunks of game and will probably be your biggest time saves throughout the run, but there are also some clever ways to utilize just plain old zooping throughout the run as well. Chapter 6, for example, has the sections of hot ground that don't burn you immediately and allow for 2 jumps. One spot in particular can skip the log rolling section. Alright, what you need to do here is be merged going into the section. The Yarny in control will take 2 big jumps, in this example being the yellow Yarny. As soon as the yellow Yarny gets off the ground on the second jump, the red Yarny unmerges and continues to hold right. The yellow Yarny then zoops to the red Yarny, and the red Yarny then takes 2 big jumps itself. Then, as soon as the red Yarny gets off the ground on its second jump, rinse and repeat with the yellow Yarny unmerging and then the red Yarny zooping, and this allows you to theoretically jump on the hot ground indefinitely without perishing. Just flip-flop who needs to unmerge and who needs to zoop back together each time, and while slightly more difficult, this technique is also possible in solo gameplay using the same setup where the only difference is having to hold merge after the mid-air unmerging instead of being able to zoop. This unmerging and remerging technique can also be utilized in the last section of the rapids when you obtain the double jump ability. This can be done in solo as well and essentially lets you have 3 jumps. While merged, one Yarny jumps, then double jumps, and at the apex of that double jump, the other Yarny comes out and can have its own double jump. For co-op in particular, this is the very useful technique when combined with partner swings, which will be covered in a bit. One note is that you need to touch water or grab one of those lightning looking strings with your yarn to replenish your double jump after using it. Plain zoops can also be advantageous for more than just catching up to your Yarny partner. There are some cutscene and environment triggers that you can skip just by simply zooping at the right time. 2 big ones that come to mind include skipping the small cutscene that shows how the woods catch on fire in Chapter 6, as well as being able to skip the fish chasing trigger before the lily pads in Chapter 4. So, to do this in Chapter 4, one Yarny stands on the last stick and waits to zoop until the other Yarny gets past the 3rd lily pad. This prevents the fish from terrorizing you, and while it should hopefully never catch you if you do things correctly, it still adds some peace of mind without sacrificing any time. So where the Yarnies are in relation to each other matters for zoop cancels. Being at different elevations can have an effect on how the Yarnies travel when zooping, so keep that in mind. Sometimes when the Yarny that zoops is at a higher level than the Yarny that cancels, the zoop path can be more of a direct straight shot rather than being a big, casual arc, and can mess with the zoop cancel timing. There are a few spots in the game where you may have to adjust your positioning to help with timing. The great thing with this game is that there are endless ways to zoop and cancel your way past obstacles, so keep trying combinations until you find the right one for you. There are certain spots in the game that seem to be more tangle prone than others. Depending on your style of play, the spots may change from co-op pair to co-op pair, so you'll have to kind of figure out how to deal with them as they arise. Sometimes changing the timing of zoops can help. Make sure you try not to zoop on front or back flips unless you are trying for more advanced techniques, as the zoop paths that the Yarnies take on flips will be far different than when not flipping. Also, there are spots where tangles can sometimes be undone, so keep that in mind as well. Finally, if you happen to tangle and can't untangle, familiarize yourself with where the checkpoint spots are so you can determine if it'd be best to pull yourself to a checkpoint before restarting, or whether it will be quicker to just go ahead and restart immediately. Some tangle restarts may put you way further back, and it could be advantageous to stretch out your string length to get a better checkpoint restart even though you're tangled. Again, you'll just have to get a feel for it as you play. Tangles are fairly common if you plan on zooping a lot, so don't even worry if they happen.